You think weakness stays hidden. It doesn't. Every flaw leaks downward, stripping authority, inviting predators, until loyalty rots and survival becomes permission, not a right. You were trained to believe weakness is private, a flaw you manage internally, a moment you can afford. That belief is why you are already exposed. Power does not operate on intention, it operates on perception. And perception does not look upward for permission, it looks downward for confirmation. Every environment you enter is silently auditing you, not for morality, not for effort, but for leakage, cracks, hesitation, emotional noise. The system is not asking who you are, it is deciding what you can be used for. Your mistake is thinking strength is something you feel. Strength is something others conclude. The moment you confuse the two, you become blind in a room full of predators. Weakness does not announce itself. It diffuses. It seeps into posture, timing, tone, tolerance. It shows up in what you explain, what you justify, what you forgive. You think these are virtues. They are tells, signals, invitations. The lens you are using is inverted. You are watching the top, studying authority, chasing validation from above. Meanwhile, the real judgment is happening below you. Subordinates test before they respect. Peers measure before they align. Enemies observe before they move. Everyone beneath your perceived position is asking the same question: can this be pushed? And the moment the answer becomes maybe, your authority begins to decay. This is the first perception layer you failed to see. Power is granted downward, not upward. Titles, roles, words, those are decorations. The real verdict is delivered by those who would benefit from your collapse. When they sense weakness, they do not attack immediately. They wait. They let it spread. They let you hang yourself with tolerance and goodwill. You were taught that being understood matters. It doesn't. Being unreadable matters. You were taught that consistency builds trust. It doesn't. Controlled unpredictability builds caution. You were taught loyalty is earned through openness. It isn't. Loyalty is extracted through consequence. This is not about becoming cruel. Cruelty is inefficient. This is about becoming precise, surgical, economical with emotion. When you allow confusion about where you stand, you create space for interpretation. Interpretation is where weakness multiplies. Understand this clearly. People do not betray strength. They orbit it. They exploit softness because softness signals safety for them. Your discomfort, your need to explain, your desire to be seen as fair, these are comforts you provide to others at your own expense. The lens shift is brutal but simple. Stop asking, am I being good? Start asking, what am I teaching others to expect from me? Every concession trains behavior. Every delay invites pressure. Every emotional display lowers the cost of challenging you. You don't need more confidence. Confidence leaks. You need compression, tight behavior, fewer words, cleaner boundaries, faster consequences. When perception tightens, resistance evaporates without conflict. This chapter is not about changing who you are. It's about killing the illusion that you were ever evaluated by your intentions. You are evaluated by outcomes and signals, always have been. Until you accept that perception flows downward relentlessly, you will keep losing ground without knowing why. You will call it bad luck, politics, toxic people. It is none of those. It is gravity. And gravity does not care how you feel about falling. Weakness does not collapse you all at once. That would be merciful. It erodes you in layers, quietly, systematically, until everyone knows before you do. Perceptual decay follows a fixed mechanism. It begins the moment your internal state leaks into external behavior. A pause where there should be decisiveness, a justification where there should be silence, an emotional explanation where there should be action. These micro-failures seem insignificant to you. To the system, they are data points. Humans are not rational observers. They are pattern recognition machines tuned for survival. Every interaction updates a subconscious ledger: stress test tolerance, enforcement threshold, emotional volatility. You are being stress tested constantly, not by enemies, but by those closest to you, especially them. The first layer of decay is permission. When you tolerate something once, you don't forgive, you authorize. Behavior repeats where consequence is absent. This is not malice, this is efficiency. People do what works. When weakness goes unpunished, it becomes protocol. The second layer is reinterpretation. Your past strength gets rewritten. What was once seen as patience becomes reframed as avoidance. What was once generosity becomes neediness. The story about you changes, and you are not in the room when it does. The third layer is containment. Others begin managing around you. Decisions get made without you. Information gets filtered. You still hold position, but not gravity. You are present, but irrelevant. This is the most dangerous phase because nothing openly challenges you yet. You mistake silence for respect. The fourth layer is testing. Small challenges appear, disrespect wrapped as humor, delays framed as logistics, boundary pushes disguised as misunderstandings. These are probes. If unchecked, they escalate. If punished cleanly, decay halts. Most men fail here because they hesitate, afraid to seem harsh, unfair, or insecure. That hesitation is the confirmation. Once perceptual decay crosses this threshold, recovery becomes exponentially expensive. You now have to overcorrect. What could have been handled with a glance now requires force. What could have been resolved quietly now demands spectacle. This is why fallen leaders often become tyrannical at the end. They are trying to reverse gravity instead of respecting it early. Understand this: people do not consciously think he is weak. That would require clarity. They feel safe ignoring you, safe delaying, safe pushing. Safety is the enemy of authority. You were likely taught that respect is built through rapport, fairness, and explanation. That is training for cooperative environments. Power environments operate differently. Respect is built through predictability of consequence, not warmth of intention. Perceptual decay accelerates when emotion enters decision-making. The moment others sense that your actions are influenced by approval, guilt, or fear of conflict, they gain leverage. Leverage invites use. Use invites disposal. This is not about becoming aggressive. Aggression is noisy and reveals insecurity. This is about becoming inevitable. When people know exactly what happens if a line is crossed, they stop thinking about crossing it. Thought is friction. Authority removes friction. The mechanism is ruthless because it is unconscious. No one wakes up plotting your erosion. They simply respond to signals, and signals compound. If you are wondering why things feel heavier than they used to, why you have to repeat yourself, why compliance takes longer, why respect feels conditional, you are already inside the decay curve. The mistake now would be panic. Panic leaks more data. The correct response is compression. Reduce emotional output. Shorten response time. Enforce once, cleanly, without explanation. Let the system recalibrate itself around you. Perception decays downward relentlessly, but it can also be reversed upward with discipline. Most men never do it. They explain, they hope, they wait, and gravity finishes the job.
Every hierarchy eventually reveals the same three archetypes, not by ideology, not by words, by behavior under pressure. If you cannot identify them, you will become fuel for one of them. The first archetype is the weak. This is not an insult, it is a position. The weak outsource authority to approval. They negotiate boundaries. They explain decisions. They believe being liked creates safety. It doesn't. It creates access. The weak are reactive. Their behavior changes based on mood, validation, and fear of conflict. This makes them predictable. Predictability is comfort. Comfort invites use. People lean on them, drain them, delay them, then quietly step past them. The weak are rarely attacked head-on. They are bypassed. They confuse morality with leverage. They think consistency makes them trustworthy. In reality, it makes them programmable. Once people learn how to elicit guilt, sympathy, or hesitation, the weak become an open system. Everyone gets a turn pulling something out. The second archetype is the masked. This is the most dangerous one to misunderstand, especially if it's you. The masked appear strong. They speak confidently. They perform dominance. But their strength is theatrical, not structural. It relies on intimidation, volume, status symbols, or volatility. They erupt when challenged. They posture. They overcorrect. The masked can hold power briefly, especially in chaotic environments, but they leak insecurity constantly. Their need to be seen, feared, or affirmed creates instability. People comply short-term, then coordinate quietly around them. The masked are tolerated until they become inconvenient, then removed decisively. Their fatal flaw is emotional visibility. Rage, pride, obsession with image. These are tells. Once exposed, their authority collapses fast. When the masked fall, they fall hard because everyone was waiting. Then there is the third archetype, rare, misunderstood, feared without noise, the sovereign. The sovereign does not signal strength, he removes doubt. His behavior is compressed, minimal, deliberate. He does not explain decisions because explanations invite negotiation. He does not react emotionally because emotion creates openings. The sovereign is not kind or cruel. Those are moral categories. He is precise. When lines are crossed, response is immediate, proportional, and final. No speeches, no warnings repeated. The system learns quickly. What separates the sovereign is not dominance, it is self-containment. His internal state does not leak. Others cannot tell what pleases him, angers him, or unsettles him. This creates asymmetry. Asymmetry creates caution. Caution creates order. People project onto the sovereign. Some see fairness, others see threat. It doesn't matter. Projection keeps them busy. While they interpret, he acts. Here is the uncomfortable truth most men avoid. Most men oscillate between weak and masked, passive until disrespected, explosive once triggered, apologetic afterward. This cycle destroys authority faster than consistent weakness ever could. It teaches others exactly how to manipulate you. The transition to sovereign requires something most men resist: identity restraint. You must give up the need to be understood, liked, or morally validated. You must tolerate being misinterpreted. Silence must not make you anxious. Distance must not feel like loss. This is why few make it. You don't become sovereign by adding traits. You become sovereign by subtracting leaks. Less explanation, less emotional output, fewer second chances delivered verbally. Watch carefully. In any group, notice who people look to when uncertainty appears. Not who talks, not who reacts, who people pause for. That is the sovereign, whether he holds title or not.
If you cannot name which archetype you currently occupy, the system already has, and it is adjusting around you. History does not record the moment weakness appears. It records the moment replacement becomes obvious. Every fallen leader, discarded ally, or sidelined man shares the same illusion that collapse came from betrayal, chaos, or external enemies. It didn't. Replacement only happens after weakness has been collectively observed and internally agreed upon. Humans are pack-oriented, not loyal. Loyalty is conditional on utility and perceived strength. When weakness enters perception, the group does not panic, it recalculates, quietly, rationally. Survival always outranks sentiment. Look at history without romance, and the pattern becomes obvious. Kings were not overthrown because they were cruel. Many tyrants ruled long. They were removed when hesitation appeared, when enforcement slowed, when mercy outpaced fear. The moment the ruler began negotiating with those beneath him, the verdict was already sealed. This is not cruelty, it is natural selection operating in social form. Weakness invites coordination. One predator alone takes a risk, a group takes none. Once multiple observers independently detect the same vulnerability, alignment happens without conversation. Smiles continue, respect is performed, but contingency plans activate. You will not see it coming because nothing changes on the surface. That is the trap. Men imagine threats look like aggression. In reality, threat looks like patience. It looks like others waiting for you to fail again, waiting for confirmation, waiting for the cost of removing you to drop low enough. Weakness lowers that cost. The more you tolerate, the cheaper it becomes to replace you. The more you explain, the less necessary you seem. The more emotional access you grant, the easier you are to manage. This is why moral men are often shocked when discarded. They believed shared values created protection. Values don't protect. Leverage does. History, organizations, relationships, same mechanics. When a man becomes predictable in his restraint, others plan around it. When he becomes emotionally legible, others exploit it. When he becomes slow to enforce, others accelerate past him. Replacement is rarely violent. That's a myth for simple minds. Modern removal is procedural, quiet, sanitized. You are not attacked, you are outgrown. Decisions stop including you. Influence reroutes. Your presence becomes ceremonial. By the time you notice, the system no longer requires your permission. This is why appealing to fairness at that stage fails. Fairness assumes shared vulnerability. Power does not. Power assumes replaceability. Once that assumption flips against you, argument becomes irrelevant. There is another uncomfortable truth most men avoid. People often feel relief when a weak authority is removed. Weak leadership creates uncertainty. Uncertainty creates stress. Removing you stabilizes the environment for them. They will justify it afterward. Ego, incompetence, politics, these are stories. The real cause is simpler. You no longer enforced gravity. Human nature does not hate strength. It resents instability. It fears unpredictability only when that unpredictability comes from emotion. Cold structure calms people, even when it limits them. This is why strong figures are often respected in retrospect, even by those who suffered under them. Strength clarifies, weakness confuses. If you think modernity changed this, you are naive. It only refined the process. Selection still operates. It just wears better clothes. If you are still holding position while sensing erosion, less response, more testing, delayed compliance, you are not safe. You are being evaluated for replacement.
The only question left is whether you will notice in time to reverse perception, or whether you will explain yourself all the way to irrelevance. Weakness does not destroy you. It makes your removal reasonable.
At this stage, most men make the fatal mistake. They try to add strength, more words, more effort, more visibility, more control. This accelerates collapse. Strength is not added, it is compressed. Compression means reducing output until only signal remains. It is the removal of excess behavior that leaks uncertainty. Weakness survives in noise. Authority lives in silence. The first compression is verbal. You speak too much because you believe clarity creates alignment. It doesn't. It creates negotiation. Every explanation invites interpretation. Every justification lowers your position to the listener's level. Strategic silence forces others to project. Projection reveals intent. When you stop filling space, people expose themselves trying to fill it for you. That information is leverage. You do not announce boundaries, you enforce them once. The second compression is temporal. Weak men delay. They wait for the right moment, the right tone, the right emotional state. Delay signals uncertainty. Uncertainty invites pressure. Response time is authority, not speed, precision timing, immediate action when lines are crossed, no escalation, no emotion, just consequence. The system learns faster from one clean enforcement than from 10 warnings. The third compression is emotional. Emotion is not weakness. Visible emotion is. The moment others can read disappointment, anger, guilt, or excitement, they gain predictive power over you. Predictability is exploitable. This does not mean becoming robotic. It means emotional opacity. Calm does not reassure others. It unsettles them. When people cannot tell how you feel, they become cautious. Caution restores hierarchy without force. The fourth compression is access. Weakness thrives where access is cheap. When everyone can reach you, interrupt you, or influence you, your position erodes. Access must be earned and revocable, not explained, not debated. Scarcity creates value. Value creates attention. Attention restores gravity. Notice this. Sovereign figures are not busy, they are unavailable. Not because they lack time, but because availability signals disposability. The fifth compression is tolerance. This is where most men fail permanently. You tolerate because you fear being seen as harsh. You fear backlash. You fear being misunderstood. But tolerance is not kindness. It is deferred enforcement. Deferred enforcement compounds resistance. Every violation tolerated increases the cost of future correction. This is why small discipline early prevents large conflict later. Compression now prevents explosion later. Understand the paradox. The fewer chances you give, the fewer chances are tested. When consequence is reliable, behavior self-regulates. This is not aggression. Aggression reveals insecurity. Compression reveals certainty. You are not trying to dominate others. You are trying to stabilize perception. Once perception stabilizes, resistance disappears organically. People align not because they fear you, but because pushing you is inefficient. Strategic compression feels uncomfortable at first because it removes your emotional coping mechanisms. You will feel colder, distant, misunderstood. That is the withdrawal symptom of authority returning. Do not explain the change. Explanation reopens negotiation. Let people adjust. They always do. If you compress correctly, something interesting happens. The system begins correcting itself before reaching you. Disrespect gets filtered out. Noise dies upstream. You stop being tested because testing becomes expensive. This is how real power scales, by reducing input, not increasing output. Most men cannot do this because compression feels like loss of self.
They cling to habits that feel human, fair, expressive. Those habits are why they were losing. In the next chapter, you will be forced to confront the final cost. The identity that created your weakness cannot survive this transition. It must be executed. Compression cannot coexist with your old identity. One of them has to die. The version of you that wanted to be understood, the version that equated fairness with safety, the version that believed consistency would be rewarded. That identity is not flawed, it is obsolete. You are not being asked to improve it, you are being asked to terminate it. Every weakness you exhibited was not a trait, it was an identity behavior. You acted the way you did because you believed that was who you were supposed to be. Good man, reliable man, reasonable man. Those identities come with behavioral defaults, explanation, tolerance, emotional accessibility, and those defaults trained others how to treat you. Identity is not philosophy. Identity is a behavioral engine. It runs even when you are tired, especially then. If the engine is wrong, discipline alone will fail. You will revert under pressure. Everyone does. That is why this phase feels violent. You are not adjusting habits, you are committing an internal execution. The old identity will resist. It will call the new behavior fake, cold, arrogant, or wrong. That voice is not morality, it is conditioning. Social programming designed for cooperative survival, not hierarchical dominance. Here is the brutal truth. The identity that seeks moral cleanliness cannot hold power. Power requires asymmetry. Asymmetry requires restraint. Restraint requires being willing to be misjudged. Your old identity needed validation to remain stable. The new one must not. This is where most men retreat, not because they lack intelligence, but because they fear isolation. The old self was socially legible, predictable, safe to approach. The new self creates distance. Distance feels like loss if you were addicted to feedback. But distance is not emptiness, it is sovereignty. You must internalize a new operating principle. You are not here to be interpreted, you are here to be accounted for. Your internal state is irrelevant, your output is final. This does not mean you abandon ethics. Ethics are private. They do not need broadcasting. Broadcasting ethics is a weakness because it invites negotiation over them. The sovereign identity is quiet, internally consistent, externally minimal. It does not announce transformation, it lets others discover it the hard way. You will notice something unsettling during this transition. People who benefited from your old identity will resist the new one. They will test harder. They will accuse you of changing. They will appeal to your past self. This is the last extraction attempt. If you explain yourself here, you resurrect the corpse. The death must be clean. No speeches, no apologies, no clarifications. Behavior alone. The sovereign identity is built on one internal rule. Nothing leaks unless it serves position. Emotion stays internal. Thought stays internal. Intention stays internal. Only action exits the system. This creates psychological gravity. People feel it before they understand it. Conversations shorten, testing decreases, compliance speeds up, not because you demanded it, but because friction disappeared. You will also lose people. That is not collateral damage, that is filtration. Weak bonds require weakness to survive. When weakness is removed, so are they. This is the final inversion you must accept. Loneliness is not the cost of power, exposure is, and exposure is what you have been paying all along. Once the old identity is gone, there is no going back, but there is also no constant effort anymore. The system aligns because your behavior is finally coherent. You are no longer negotiating with gravity. You are applying it.
There is one last illusion you need stripped away. That once you arrive, the pressure stops. It doesn't. Selection is not an event, it is a permanent process. Every environment, every hierarchy, every relationship is continuously scanning for decay. Power is not something you win and keep. It is something you defend by default behavior. The moment you relax into comfort, gravity resumes. This is why fallen men are always surprised. They thought the war ended. They mistook stability for safety. They believed past dominance bought future forgiveness. It doesn't. History has no loyalty program. Selection never pauses because humans never stop optimizing for advantage. Even allies measure. Even followers reassess. Even those who benefit from you are watching for decline, because decline creates opportunity. This is not cynicism. It is structure. The final mistake men make is turning discipline into performance. They maintain authority publicly, but soften privately. They enforce selectively. They let emotion back in through side doors, relationships, nostalgia, fatigue. That is where decay re-enters. The sovereign does not oscillate. He does not turn it on. His behavior is boringly consistent because it is no longer effort, it is identity. This is the only sustainable form of power. Understand the final warning clearly. You will not be attacked at your peak. You will be replaced at your weakest moment of self-indulgence. When you assume goodwill, when you assume history matters, when you assume people remember who you used to be. They don't. They respond to what you project now. There is no moral resolution coming, no fairness correction, no final recognition. This is not a story. It is an operating environment. Either you accept permanent selection and live sovereign within it, or you seek comfort and become inventory. Most men choose comfort. They call it balance. They call it humanity. They call it peace. Then they are quietly stepped over. This content was never meant to inspire you. Inspiration fades. It was meant to corner you, to remove your exits, to force a decision. You already know which side of this you've been on. The only question left is whether you will adapt before the system decides for you, because it always decides, and it does not ask permission.